The slap echoed through the auditorium. 9-year-old Shayla stood frozen on stage, trophy in hand, as her stepmother's palm print burned red on her cheek. The crowd gasped, but when a man in the back row stood up, removing his sunglasses, her stepmother's face drained of all color. She had no idea who she just humiliated. Now let me take you back to where it all started, to a cramped apartment on the south side of Chicago, where a 9-year-old girl named Shayla Thompson was living a life nobody should have to endure. Shayla's world was small and cold and unfair. She lived in a 2-bedroom apartment that barely held 4 people, but somehow had to make room for all the pain, all the resentment, all the ugliness that her stepmother Vanessa brought into their home. 3 years ago, Shayla's father Dennis remarried, thinking he was giving his daughter a new mother, a new family, a fresh start after losing his wife to cancer when Shayla was just 5 years old. But Vanessa didn't come alone. She brought her daughter Brianna, also 9, and from the moment they moved in, Shayla's life became a living nightmare. Dennis worked double shifts at a warehouse across town, supervising loading docks and inventory, pulling 16-hour days just to keep the lights on and food on the table. He left before sunrise and came home after dark, exhausted, broken, too tired to notice what was happening under his own roof. And Vanessa knew it. She knew exactly how invisible she could make Shayla's suffering, how easy it was to hide the truth when the only witness was always gone. The apartment told the whole story if you knew how to read it. Shayla slept on a worn-out couch in the living room, the springs poking through the cushions, a thin blanket that barely kept her warm on cold Chicago nights. Brianna had the bedroom with the fresh paint, the new furniture Vanessa bought on credit, the stuffed animals arranged perfectly on the bed like something out of a magazine. Shayla wore clothes from the Goodwill down the street, faded jeans with patches on the knees, oversized shirts that used to belong to boys twice her size. Brianna got new outfits every week, name brand sneakers, designer backpacks, everything a spoiled child could want. Shayla did her homework by the dim light of a dollar store lamp after everyone went to bed, squinting at the pages until her eyes burned. Brianna had a desk, a laptop, high-speed internet, every advantage money could barely buy. But the cruelest part wasn't the material things. The cruelest part was how Vanessa made Shayla earn every scrap of food, every moment of peace, every breath of air in that apartment. Every morning started the same way. Shayla's alarm went off at 5:30, a quiet buzz she'd trained herself to wake up to without disturbing anyone else. She'd slip off the couch, fold her blanket, and tiptoe to the kitchen where she'd start breakfast for the family. Scrambled eggs for Brianna because she didn't like them any other way. Toast with butter, not too dark, cut diagonally because Brianna threw a tantrum if it wasn't perfect. Orange juice poured into Brianna's favorite cup, the one with the princess on it that Shayla wasn't allowed to touch. Coffee for Vanessa, 2 sugars, a splash of cream, served in bed because Vanessa said she had a condition that made mornings difficult. Then Shayla would pack Brianna's lunch, a sandwich with the crusts cut off, apple slices, a juice box, cookies that Shayla bought with the lunch money Dennis gave her, even though she never had anything for herself. She'd wake Brianna at 7, lay out her clothes, make sure her homework was in her backpack, tie her shoes because Brianna said she never learned how. By 7:30, Shayla would grab her own worn backpack, slip out the door, and run 6 blocks to catch the bus, with nothing in her stomach except tap water and the weight of another day ahead. But here's what Vanessa didn't know, what nobody knew except Shayla's 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Washington. Despite everything, despite the exhaustion and the hunger and the bruises on her knees from scrubbing floors, Shayla was brilliant. She had a gift for words, a hunger for knowledge that no amount of cruelty could kill. While Brianna struggled with basic spelling tests, Shayla devoured books like they were oxygen. She carried a dictionary everywhere she went, a battered paperback with a cracked spine and yellowed pages that used to belong to her mother, her real mother, the one who died when Shayla was 5, but left behind this one precious thing, this connection to a woman who believed her daughter could be anything. Shayla studied that dictionary on the bus during lunch when she sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria, during recess when the other kids played and she sat under a tree memorizing definitions. She stayed late at the public library 3 blocks from school, reading until the librarian gently told her it was closing time, until the sun went down and she had to run home before Vanessa noticed she was late. Mrs. Washington saw it all. She was a 62-year-old woman who'd been teaching for 40 years, who'd seen every kind of student walk through her classroom door, but she'd never seen a child quite like Shayla. The girl had something special, something that couldn't be taught or bought or faked. She had grit, she had fire, she had the kind of determination that makes champions out of underdogs and legends out of forgotten children. Mrs. Washington noticed how Shayla's eyes lit up during vocabulary lessons, how her hand shot up first every single time, how she spelled words most adults couldn't pronounce. She noticed the faded clothes and the hungry look and the way Shayla sometimes fell asleep at her desk during quiet reading time. She noticed everything, and her heart broke a little more each day. So when the announcement came in late October that the school would be hosting a regional spelling bee in 6 weeks, Mrs. Washington immediately thought of Shayla. This was her chance. This was the moment that could change everything. The flyer went up on the bulletin board outside the cafeteria on a Monday morning. Regional Spelling Bee Championship, December 14th, Chicago Cultural Center. Open to all 4th and 5th graders. Grand prize, $2,000 scholarship and a trophy. 20 spots available, first come, first served. Shayla saw it during lunch, standing there with her empty lunch tray, reading those words over and over like a prayer. $2,000, a scholarship, a trophy. Her mother's face flashed in her mind. That warm smile she could barely remember. The way her mother used to read to her every night before bed. The way she'd say, "Baby, you're going to do great things someday." Shayla's hands trembled as she wrote her name on the sign-up sheet, number 7 on the list. For the first time in 3 years, she felt something she'd almost forgotten how to feel: hope. But hope has a way of attracting trouble, and trouble came in the form of Vanessa, standing in the school hallway 2 days later, signing Brianna up for the exact same competition. Vanessa had heard about the spelling bee from another parent, heard about the scholarship money, and immediately decided this was Brianna's destiny. Never mind that Brianna barely passed her spelling tests, that she couldn't tell the difference between there and there, that she'd rather watch cartoons than open a book. Vanessa saw that $2,000 prize and convinced herself that her daughter was gifted, special, destined for greatness. She grabbed Brianna's hand and marched into the school office, demanded to sign her daughter up, wrote Brianna's name on the sheet with such force the pen nearly tore through the paper. That night at dinner, Vanessa announced it to the whole family. "Brianna's gonna win that spelling bee. My baby is naturally gifted, always has been. That scholarship is as good as ours." She looked right at Shayla when she said it, a cold smile on her face, a warning in her eyes. "Don't even think about it." Shayla didn't say a word. She just nodded, finished her small portion of leftovers while Brianna got seconds and excused herself to the couch. But that night, after everyone was asleep, she pulled out her mother's dictionary and started studying by the light of her phone. She studied like her life depended on it, because in a way, it did. This wasn't just about winning anymore. This was about proving she mattered, that she existed, that she was worth something. The next morning, she approached Mrs. Washington before class and asked if she could help her prepare. Mrs. Washington's face broke into the biggest smile Shayla had seen in years. Baby, I thought you'd never ask." And just like that, Shayla had a coach, a mentor, a warrior in her corner. The next 6 weeks were the hardest of Shayla's young life, and that's saying something. Mrs. Washington stayed after school every day, drilling her on word lists, testing her on etymology and pronunciation, pushing her to be faster, sharper, better. Shayla woke up even earlier now, 4:30 in the morning, giving herself an extra hour to study before she had to start breakfast. She practiced spelling while she scrambled eggs, while she folded laundry, while she scrubbed the bathroom floor on her hands and knees. She whispered definitions to herself on the bus, in the hallways between classes, in bed before she finally passed out from exhaustion. Her body ached constantly. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep. Her stomach growled because she was giving most of her food to make sure there was enough for Brianna. Because Vanessa would notice if Brianna complained, but never noticed if Shayla went without. And Vanessa noticed that Shayla was competing. Oh, she noticed. 2 weeks into the preparation, she found Shayla studying at the kitchen table after everyone had gone to bed. Vanessa walked in, saw the dictionary, saw the flashcards Mrs. Washington had made, and her face twisted into something ugly. "You think you're better than Brianna?" she hissed, snatching the materials off the table. "You think you're going to embarrass my daughter?" Shayla tried to explain that it wasn't about that she just wanted to do her best, but Vanessa wasn't listening. She grabbed Shayla's mother's dictionary, the one irreplaceable thing Shayla owned, and hid it somewhere Shayla never found it. Then she piled on more chores, made Shayla stay up until midnight, cleaning baseboards with a toothbrush, reorganizing the entire kitchen, washing windows inside and out. She was trying to break her, trying to make sure Shayla was too exhausted to compete, but she didn't understand who she was dealing with. Every time Vanessa pushed, Shayla pushed back harder. Every time Vanessa took something away, Shayla found another way forward. While Shayla trained in secret and in exhaustion, Brianna got the royal treatment. Vanessa hired a private tutor, some college student charging $80 an hour they absolutely could not afford, money that should have gone to groceries and rent. Brianna got study guides and apps and flashcards printed in color. Vanessa bragged to the neighbors, to the other parents at school, to anyone who would listen. "My daughter is going to destroy that competition. She's naturally gifted, always has been. The other kids don't stand a chance." But here's the thing about entitlement. It makes you lazy. Brianna didn't study. She half listened to the tutor while scrolling through her phone. She assumed winning was her birthright, that the trophy was already hers because her mother said so. She'd glance at a word list for 5 minutes, then declare herself ready. Meanwhile, Shayla was memorizing 1,000 words a week, learning roots and prefixes and language patterns, building an empire of knowledge in her exhausted mind. 2 weeks before the competition, Shayla fainted at school. It was during PE, running laps around the gym, and her body just gave out. 1 second she was running, the next she was on the floor, the world spinning, Mrs. Washington's face hovering above her, panicked and scared. The school nurse checked her out, gave her orange juice and crackers, asked when she'd last eaten a real meal. Shayla couldn't remember. The nurse called Dennis at work, but he couldn't leave, told them to send her home with instructions to rest. But Mrs. Washington didn't let her go home. She drove Shayla to her own house, made her a hot meal, chicken and rice and vegetables, and watched her eat every bite. Then she sat across from Shayla at her kitchen table and asked the question she'd been afraid to ask. "Baby, what's really going on at home?" And Shayla, exhausted and fed and safe for the first time in forever, broke down and told her everything. Mrs. Washington didn't call the police or child services, not yet, because she knew how those systems worked and how they could make things worse, but she did something maybe more important. She looked Shayla in the eyes and said, "Listen to me. You are not nothing. You are not nobody. You are brilliant and strong and worthy of every good thing in this world. Your mama is watching over you and she is so proud. Now we're going to win this spelling bee together, and we're going to show everyone what you're made of. You understand me?" Shayla nodded, tears streaming down her face, and for the first time in years, she believed someone actually cared, whether she lived or died. Mrs. Washington gave her a brand new dictionary to replace the one Vanessa stole, slipped her protein bars to keep in her backpack, and made her promise to eat at least one every day. Then she drove her home, watched until she got inside safely, and said a prayer that this child would make it through to the other side. December 14th arrived cold and gray, the kind of Chicago winter morning where your breath turns to fog and the wind cuts right through your coat. The spelling bee was scheduled for 10 in the morning at the Chicago Cultural Center, a beautiful historic building downtown with marble floors and stained glass domes, and an auditorium that could hold 300 people. Shayla woke up at dawn, nerves eating at her stomach, excitement and terror mixing into something she couldn't name. She put on the nicest thing she owned, a simple navy dress that Mrs. Washington had given her, clean but faded from too many washes. She brushed her hair until it shined. She looked at herself in the bathroom mirror and whispered to her reflection, "You can do this, Mama. If you're listening, help me do this." Dennis was supposed to come, promised he'd be there, but at 8 in the morning he got called into work for an emergency. A truck overturned on the loading dock, all hands on deck. He apologized through the phone, voice heavy with guilt, promised he'd make it up to her. Shayla said it was okay, even though her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She rode the bus downtown alone, clutching her backpack, trying not to cry. Brianna arrived like a princess at a ball. Vanessa had bought her a brand new outfit, a purple dress with sparkles, shoes that cost more than Shayla's entire wardrobe, hair professionally done in elaborate braids with beads that clicked when she moved. Vanessa paraded her around the lobby, introducing her to other parents, talking loudly about how Brianna was going to win, how this was just the beginning of her daughter's bright future. She didn't even look at Shayla, didn't acknowledge her existence, acted like the girl warming up alone in the corner with a borrowed dictionary didn't even exist. But someone else noticed Shayla. In the back of the auditorium, a man in an expensive charcoal suit sat down quietly, sunglasses on, even though he was indoors, a leather notebook in his lap. He wasn't a parent, wasn't a teacher, wasn't anyone the organizers recognized. He'd come in through a side door, taken a seat in the last row, and settled in to watch. His name was Marcus Winters, and he had his reasons for being there. Reasons nobody knew yet. The competition started at 10 sharp. 20 students lined up on stage, nervous and excited, parents filling the seats, cameras flashing. The head judge explained the rules: single elimination, 3 rounds of group words, then head-to-head until only one remained. The moderator was a cheerful woman with a microphone and a stack of word cards. She welcomed everyone, thanked the sponsors, mentioned that this event was made possible by a generous donation from an anonymous benefactor who believed in giving every child a chance to shine. In the back row, Marcus Winters smiled slightly but said nothing. The first round began easy, warm-up words to calm the nerves. Apple, mountain, beautiful. Kids spelled them quickly, confidently. Brianna got rainbow and spelled it correctly, mostly because it was impossible to mess up. Vanessa clapped like her daughter had just won the whole thing. Shayla got excellent and spelled it without hesitation, her voice clear and strong. Mrs. Washington, sitting in the 5th row, whispered, "That's my girl." Round 2 stepped it up. Gymnasium, parliament, necessary. 3 kids got eliminated, sitting down with tears in their eyes while their parents consoled them. Brianna got beginning and almost messed it up. hesitated on the double N, but got lucky and guessed right. Vanessa exhaled hard, gripping the armrest. Shayla got fluorescent and spelled it like she was reading off a menu, smooth and easy. By round 3, the difficulty jumped again. Conscientious bureaucracy silhouette. 5 more kids went down. The audience was getting invested now, leaning forward, whispering predictions. Brianna was visibly sweating, her confidence cracking. Shayla was calm, centered in a zone she'd trained 6 weeks to find. Marcus Winters leaned forward slightly, watching Shayla with intense focus, seeing something in her that reminded him of someone he used to know, himself. Round 4 was where it got real. 8 students left, including Shayla and Brianna. The words were college level now. Idiosyncrasy, entrepreneur, pharaoh. 2 more kids got eliminated. Brianna got technique and blanked completely, stared at the moderator like she'd been asked to explain quantum physics. She stammered, "Tekneek." The bell dinged. She was wrong. She stumbled off the stage, Vanessa's face going red with embarrassment and rage. Shayla got catastrophe and spelled it perfectly, her voice never wavering. 5 students left, then 3. Then, after a brutal round of words like conscience and lieutenant and kaleidoscope, it came down to 2. Shayla and a 5th grader named Terrence, a confident kid from a private school on the north side. The room went silent. This was the championship round. Winner takes all. Terrence went first. The moderator gave him pneumonia. He thought hard, spelled it slowly, Pneumonia. The bell rang. Wrong. He'd missed the E. He sat down, disappointed but gracious. The crowd applauded his effort. Now it was Shayla's turn. If she spelled her word correctly, she won. The moderator smiled at her, pulled the championship card, and read it aloud. Your word is resilience. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Resilience. The thing Shayla had lived every single day of her life. She closed her eyes for just a second, saw her mother's face, felt Mrs. Washington's belief, heard her own heartbeat in her ears. Then she opened her eyes and spoke clearly into the microphone. Resilience. 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 The buzzer sounded. Correct. The auditorium exploded. People jumped to their feet, clapping and cheering. Mrs. Washington was sobbing, hands over her mouth. The moderator called Shayla to center stage, placed the trophy in her hands, handed her an oversized check for $2,000. Shayla held that trophy like it was made of gold and stardust, tears streaming down her face, and whispered to the ceiling, I did it, Mama. I did it. For 10 perfect seconds, Shayla stood in the light. The photographer was setting up for the winner's photo. The moderator was shaking her hand. The applause was still echoing through the hall. And then the clicking of heels on marble broke through the noise. Vanessa was walking toward the stage, her face a mask of pure fury. People turned to look, confused. Brianna was still in her seat, eyes wide, sensing something terrible about to happen. Shayla saw Vanessa coming and smiled, innocent and hopeful, thinking maybe, just maybe, her stepmother was coming to congratulate her. Did you see? Shayla said, holding up the trophy. I won. And that's when Vanessa's hand came across her face, with a crack that silenced the entire room. The slap wasn't just a slap. It was 3 years of resentment, of jealousy, of rage, at a little girl who dared to be better than Vanessa's own daughter. The impact knocked Shayla sideways, the trophy falling from her hands and clattering across the stage. The handprint bloomed red on her cheek. Shayla stood frozen, unable to process what just happened, pain radiating through her skull. The audience gasped, a collective intake of 300 horrified breaths. Vanessa wasn't done. She grabbed Shayla by the shoulder, spun her around, and screamed in her face, You think you're special? You think you're better than my daughter? You're nothing, you're nobody, you don't deserve this." She reached for the trophy, tried to yank it away. "This belongs to Brianna. She's the gifted one, not you." Shayla was crying now, shaking, too stunned to defend herself. People in the audience were yelling, telling Vanessa to stop, but nobody moved. They were too shocked, too frozen by the horror of watching an adult assault a child on stage. And then, in the back of the auditorium, Marcus Winters stood up. He moved slowly, deliberately, removing his sunglasses and tucking them into his jacket pocket. He started walking down the center aisle, every step measured and purposeful. People recognized him immediately. Whispers rippled through the crowd like wildfire. "Wait, is that Marcus Winters? Oh my God, that's Marcus Winters! The billionaire? What's he doing here?" Vanessa heard the whispers, turned to see who they were talking about, and her eyes landed on the man walking toward her. Her face went from red to white in an instant. Her hand, still gripping Shayla's shoulder, started to tremble. She knew exactly who Marcus Winters was. Everyone in Chicago knew who Marcus Winters was. Marcus Winters was a legend, a self-made billionaire who'd built a tech empire worth $3.2 billion from absolutely nothing. He grew up in the South Side projects, raised by a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to keep the lights on. He'd been that kid, the one wearing secondhand clothes, doing homework by candlelight when the electricity got shut off, going to school hungry more days than not. But he had a gift for computers, for coding, for seeing patterns nobody else could see. He got a scholarship to MIT, dropped out after 2 years to start his first company, failed twice, succeeded on the 3rd try, and never looked back. Now he owned a tech company that employed 15,000 people, held patents on software used worldwide, and gave away millions every year to education programs for underprivileged kids. He'd sponsored this entire spelling bee, donated $50,000 to the school district to make it happen, and showed up anonymously because he wanted to see the kids compete without the pressure of knowing a billionaire was watching. He'd sat in the back row for 2 hours watching 20 children give their best, but his eyes kept returning to one girl in particular, the skinny kid in the faded dress who spelled like she was fighting for her life, because he recognized that hunger, that fire, that refusal to quit. He'd seen it in the mirror 30 years ago. Marcus climbed onto the stage with the calm authority of a man who'd faced down boardrooms full of executives and venture capitalists. He walked past Vanessa like she was invisible, knelt down to Shayla's level, and his voice was gentle when he spoke. "You okay, sweetheart?" Shayla nodded, unable to find words, her cheek still burning. Marcus stood, picked up the trophy from where it had fallen, and handed it back to her. Then he turned to face Vanessa, and his expression changed. The gentleness was gone. What replaced it was cold, hard justice. "I've been watching this whole event," he said, his voice carrying through the silent auditorium. "I've been watching you." Vanessa tried to speak, her voice shaking. "Mr. Winters, I can explain. She's just—" Marcus held up a hand. "I'm not finished." The room held its breath. "I came from nothing," Marcus said, his eyes locked on Vanessa. "I was that kid, the one nobody believed in, the one people looked past, talked down to, expected to fail. I sponsored this event because I believe every child deserves a chance to show the world what they're capable of. I believe in giving opportunities to kids who society forgets. But what you just did?" He paused, letting the words sink in. "Assaulting a child? Your child? On stage in front of 300 witnesses after she just accomplished something incredible. That's not discipline, that's not correction, that's abuse. Plain and simple." Vanessa's legs were shaking now. She tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go. Marcus pulled out his phone, held it up. "I recorded everything. The slap Your words, all of it. Crystal clear, high definition, time-stamped and backed up to the cloud. The color drained completely from Vanessa's face. She looked around desperately, searching for sympathy, for escape, for anything. But every face in that auditorium was looking at her with disgust. Even Brianna, sitting in the third row, was crying and shaking her head, like she didn't recognize her own mother. Marcus continued, his voice steady and unforgiving. I'm calling the police. You'll be charged with child abuse and assault. I'm also calling Child Protective Services to open an investigation, and I'm personally ensuring that this video reaches every news outlet in Chicago, because the public needs to know what happened here today. Vanessa started crying, not from remorse, but from panic, from the realization that her entire life was about to implode. Please, Mr. Winters, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did, Marcus cut her off. You meant every word, every action. Now you're going to face the consequences. Security, please escort this woman off the stage. 2 security guards appeared, taking Vanessa by the arms. She was crying hysterically now, begging, apologizing, but nobody was listening. They walked her out through a side door while the crowd watched in stunned silence. Marcus turned back to Shayla, and his expression softened again. He knelt down once more, eye to eye with this brave little girl who just survived something no child should ever experience. You earned this trophy, he said quietly, making sure she was looking at him. Don't you ever let anyone take it from you. Don't you ever let anyone tell you you're not worth something. You hear me? Shayla nodded, tears running down her face, but this time they weren't tears of pain. They were tears of relief, of validation, of finally being seen. Thank you, sir, she whispered. Marcus smiled. What's your dream, Shayla? What do you want to be when you grow up? Shayla thought about Mrs. Washington, about the teacher who believed in her when nobody else did. I want to go to college, she said. I want to be a teacher, just like Mrs. Washington. Marcus's smile grew wider. Then let's make sure that happens. He stood up, addressed the audience. I'm setting up a full scholarship fund for Shayla, covering her education from now through university, including housing, books, and anything else she needs. This young lady just showed us what resilience really means. Let's give her the future she deserves. The auditorium erupted in applause, a standing ovation that shook the walls. The police arrived 20 minutes later. They took statements from Marcus, from Shayla, from the moderator, and several witnesses. Vanessa was arrested in the lobby, charged with child abuse and assault of a minor. The video Marcus recorded was handed over as evidence, and by that evening, it had been leaked to the press. Within 24 hours, it went viral. Millions of people watched a stepmother slap a 9-year-old spelling bee champion, watched a billionaire stand up and deliver justice, watched a little girl hold on to her trophy with a red handprint on her face and tears in her eyes. The outrage was national. News anchors discussed it. Social media exploded with support for Shayla and condemnation for Vanessa. Dennis rushed to the cultural center as soon as he heard, arriving just as the police were finishing their interviews. When he saw Shayla's face, saw the mark Vanessa had left, he broke down crying and pulled his daughter into his arms for the first time in what felt like forever. I'm so sorry, baby, he sobbed. I should have protected you. I should have seen what was happening. I'm so sorry. Shayla hugged her father back and whispered, It's okay, Daddy. We're going to be okay now. The aftermath was swift and brutal for Vanessa. The video made her infamous overnight. She lost her job within a week when her employer saw the footage. She was convicted of child abuse, sentenced to 2 years probation, mandatory anger management and parenting classes, and permanently lost all custody rights. Dennis filed for divorce immediately, and it was finalized in record time. Nobody wanted anything to do with her. Neighbors crossed the street when they saw her coming. Her own family cut her off. She ended up working minimum wage at a gas station, living in a studio apartment alone, watching from a distance as Shayla's life transformed into something beautiful. And the regret ate at her every single day because she knew she'd destroyed everything with her own hands, all because she couldn't handle her stepdaughter being better than her biological child. Brianna's story took a different turn. She went to live with Vanessa's sister across town, away from her mother's toxic influence. Without Vanessa constantly telling her she was special and entitled and superior, Brianna started to change. She had to do her own homework for the first time. She had to clean her own room. She had to face the consequences of her actions. It was hard at first, humiliating even, but slowly she began to understand what real effort felt like. 6 months after the spelling bee, she wrote Shayla a letter. It was 3 pages long, handwritten, full of apologies and admissions. She admitted she'd been cruel. She admitted she'd let her mother poison her mind. She admitted Shayla deserved everything good that was happening to her. Shayla read that letter sitting at the kitchen table in her new apartment, the better place Dennis moved them to after he quit one of his jobs to actually be present in his daughter's life. She read it twice, thought about it for a long time, and then she wrote back. She didn't forgive everything immediately because some wounds take time to heal, but she forgave enough. She told Brianna she hoped she'd find her own path, her own gifts, her own reasons to be proud of herself. It wasn't a close relationship after that, but it was peaceful. And sometimes peace is enough. Marcus Winters kept his promise and then some. He set up a trust fund in Shayla's name, managed by Mrs. Washington and Dennis, that would cover every educational expense from elementary school through a PhD if she wanted it. He paid for therapy sessions to help her heal from the trauma of living with Vanessa. Twice a week with the best child psychologist in Chicago, he invited her to his company headquarters, showed her the tech labs and the innovation centers, introduced her to engineers and programmers and designers who looked like her and came from backgrounds like hers. He became a mentor, not in a showy way, but in the way that mattered, checking in once a month, asking about her grades, encouraging her dreams, reminding her that she was capable of anything. And Shayla thrived. She absolutely thrived. 1 year later, Shayla stood on another stage at another spelling bee, but this time everything was different. She was 10 years old now, healthy and confident, wearing a dress that actually fit, her hair done beautifully, her smile bright and genuine. Dennis sat in the front row, beaming with pride, having taken the day off work because he wouldn't miss this for anything. Mrs. Washington was there too, crying happy tears before the competition even started. And in the back, wearing sunglasses and a slight smile, Marcus Winters sat quietly, watching his investment pay dividends that couldn't be measured in money. Shayla won that competition too, spelling her final word without hesitation, holding the trophy high above her head. But this time, when she held it, she wasn't fighting back tears of pain. She was crying tears of joy, of accomplishment, of knowing that she'd survived the worst and come out stronger. This time, when she whispered to her mother, she whispered, "We did it, Mama. We really did it." 2 years after that viral video, after the news cycle moved on and the internet found new outrages to obsess over, Shayla was 11 years old and competing at the National Spelling Bee in Washington, D.C. She didn't win that one, came in 7th out of 250 students, but she stood on that stage representing Chicago, representing every kid who'd ever been counted out, representing resilience itself. The cameras loved her. Reporters wanted her story. But Shayla stayed humble, stayed focused, stayed true to who she was. She still carried a dictionary everywhere, still studied words like they were treasures, still volunteered at her local library on Saturdays helping younger kids learn to read. She'd started a mentorship program with Mrs. Washington, visiting elementary schools and talking to students about perseverance in education and believing in yourself even when nobody else does. She was becoming exactly what her mother always dreamed she'd be, exactly what she'd fought so hard to become. Somebody. The final chapter of this story isn't about revenge or fame or even the money, though the scholarship changed Shayla's life in practical ways that can't be overstated. The final chapter is about a little girl who refused to break, who took every slap, every insult, every hungry night and impossible task and turned it into fuel, who stood on a stage with a handprint on her face and held onto her trophy like it was the only thing keeping her alive, because in a way it was. It was proof that she mattered, that her effort counted, that cruelty doesn't always win. And when Marcus Winters stood up in that auditorium, he wasn't just defending Shayla. He was defending every version of himself that had been counted out, looked past, expected to fail. He was proving that sometimes, just sometimes, the right person is watching. Sometimes justice shows up in an expensive suit and refuses to let evil hide in plain sight. Sometimes the underdog wins, and the bully faces consequences, and the story ends the way it should. Shayla is 15 now, thriving in high school, straight-A student, captain of the debate team, already touring colleges even though she's got years before she has to decide. She still keeps in touch with Marcus, still visits Mrs. Washington every week, still has a relationship with her father that's built on honesty and presence. She barely thinks about Vanessa anymore, and when she does, it's with pity rather than anger, because Vanessa has to live every day knowing she destroyed her own life, knowing she could have chosen kindness and chose cruelty instead, knowing that the girl she tried to break became stronger than she could ever imagine. That's punishment enough. Shayla doesn't need revenge. She has something better. She has a future bright and limitless, built on the foundation of her own resilience. And every time she spells that word, resilience, she remembers standing on that stage at 9 years old, cheek burning, trophy in hand, and a billionaire standing up for her when nobody else would. This story reminds us that poverty doesn't define you, that cruelty doesn't win in the end, that resilience isn't just a word you spell, but a word you live every single day. Shayla's story teaches us that one moment of courage, one person willing to stand up, one act of justice can change the entire trajectory of a life. It shows us that the kids we overlook, the ones we count out, the ones suffering in silence, they might be the most brilliant among us. They might be the ones who spell words nobody else can, who dream bigger than their circumstances, who refuse to quit no matter how many times they get knocked down. And sometimes, when everything seems darkest, when the slap echoes through the auditorium and the world feels impossibly cruel, someone stands up, someone sees you, someone fights for you, and everything changes. If this story moved you, if Shayla's journey touched something in your heart, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on those notifications, because I bring you stories like this every single week. Stories about real resilience, real courage, real people overcoming impossible odds. Smash that like button if you believe in justice, if you believe in standing up for kids who can't stand up for themselves, if you believe that good people still exist in this world. Drop a comment and tell me what moment hit you the hardest. Was it the slap? Was it Marcus standing up? Was it Shayla winning despite everything? I read every single comment, and your words matter to me. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who's fighting their own battle. Someone who needs to be reminded that resilience wins in the end. And remember this, your circumstances don't define your destiny. The people who doubt you don't get to write your story. You are stronger than you know, more capable than anyone gives you credit for, and your moment is coming. Stay strong, stay resilient, Keep fighting for your dreams, and I'll see you in the next story. Peace.